lies
What?
and her personality shifts.
They just outright say that in the book? Are they trying to hide it then? Hi, I'm Nervous, and today we're going to be reacting to one of MatPat's final film theories. I know I'm a few months late on this, but to be completely honest, I didn't want to watch this film theory. The first FNAF movie film theory I thought was going to be so accurate, and I ended up being pretty right about that I didn't want to watch this one because I was afraid it would ruin some of the magic of the other two movies for me. However, after delving into the FNAF novel trilogy and after speaking to some of you over our live stream from last week's video, I think that it's time I watch this video. Apparently there were some really big surprises in this video that I wasn't aware of, so I'm excited to see what they are. As always, please remember to like the video if you enjoyed it or if you just want to support me, and subscribe to become a part of the Nervous system. I've also recently introduced channel memberships. If you're interested in that, it's just a $1 tier right now, and I will shout out your name in my videos. Speaking of which, I've got some channel members to shout out today. Their names are on screen right now, but since they're some of my first sparks, I wanted to go ahead and shout them out. So thank you so much to SW Big Fan 1 and Seijo. And without further ado, let's get reacting.
The Five Nights at Freddy's movie came and went from theaters. It was fun. It did great financially, and we all had ourselves a grand old time. And yet, they couldn't just leave well enough alone, could they? Because just like clockwork for this franchise, they turned the movie into a book. A book! Even though I announced my final episodes,
I wasn't expecting them to talk about the novel. I guess I should have been expecting that.
Still couldn't get out of this thing fast enough, could I? Even though all the book releases were technically done for the franchise after 22 solid books. And that's not even including the graphic novels and all the other spin-off materials. Good old Scotty Cawthon found a way to squeeze one more in on me before my foot was out the door. Oh, I can't even say it. It physically makes me ill to acknowledge that something like this exists. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here today to tell you that the book version of the FNAF movie, it tells us everything about where the film spin-off series is headed to next. And perhaps more importantly than anything, it tells us that the big reveal of chapter 3 is gonna be that Vanessa is a robot. Yeah, I know. You may now commence throwing things angrily.
Okay, I'm not gonna throw things angrily at him. I'm not gonna throw tomatoes at him because what I was talking about in my recent live stream, let's just go full screen for this, was that I was reading Silver Eyes and thinking about the other two novels that I haven't truly read through but have looked at summaries for and watched countless videos on, was that I was like, I wonder if Vanessa is a robot, like for the games, for Security Breach. But also, when the group I went to see the FNAF movie with and I were leaving the theater and on our way home, we were all talking about how we thought Vanessa was a robot. Just from the movie. Let me just stop here and be completely honest. I've had separate thoughts about each of the main three characters in the movie being robots. Mike might be a robot because Vanessa said she found him and then pauses like she's gonna say dead, and then she says like hurt or unconscious or something instead, and it made me think of I should be dead but I'm not kind of thought. Then with Abby, she was acting the way that I would think that they would have somebody who's trying to be Charlie act, who is a robot in the novels. And she was like averse to eating or socializing like the other kids were. But she's eating at the end of the movie. The Charlie robot eats. It's a lot. But yeah, then I also had the thought about Vanessa because when Springtrap pulls the knife out of her body, it doesn't have blood on it. However, later I did realize that she did have blood on her wound area. And I have a hard time understanding how she'd be in the hospital if she's a robot. I'd love to hear what he's going to say though about this, because I would never throw tomatoes at him. I literally sat there and was just like, you know, honestly, all of them could be robots in their own right. So I'm way further off the deep end than he is on this. I'm also noticing that I don't have bell notifications turned on for film theory, so my bad. Wow, how rude of me.
at your computer monitor. So while you're busy getting yourself an angry arm workout, what am I talking about exactly? Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's not uncommon for films to get themselves what are known as movie novelizations. Basically a book that retells the exact same story as a movie, but because it's a book, there tend to be additional details thrown in to bulk things out. Nowadays, though, it's more of an additional source of found revenue for a movie.
Detective
You already got
Pikachu
yourself
really has a
script
book?
written after all, so you might as well throw in a few thousand extra words, slap a cover on it. You just made yourself a couple extra bucks from the hardcore fans and the collectors. So of course, when the FNAF movie got itself one, I was legally bound to read through it with the hope and expectation that there might be some juicy lore hidden inside of its pages. And let me tell you, I was not disappointed. It was like experiencing the movie through some sort of weird multiverse. For instance, I am actually in the book. Well, Ness, my character from the movie. The catchphrase is in there and everything. It is really cool. Ness is supposedly the son of the diner's owner, whose name is, in fact, Sparky. And that right there, that's a pretty interesting detail when you consider that there's a dog animatronic who we've all been assuming is Sparky hidden in the back of Freddy's Pizzeria.
Not
it
the
is
dog.
a super unusual detail that gets just a little bit more explanation and a bit more insight, all thanks to the novel. So, I'm the son of a fake animatronic dog. File that one in my character bio right alongside my undying love.
But what if... Okay, this is a great spot to stop, but what if Sparky is also that guy's name, but he also, because it's Sparky's, he had that animatronic, like, as a part of his diner. And it was, like, the mascot of Sparky's diner. And FNAF, like, bought the rights to it or something to put it in their pizzeria. Or they were just jealous and stole it. High school mascot style. Just throwing it out there.
Dug in the books, he is a very different character. The diner scene straight up features him openly creeping on Maxine. Enough so that she thinks of him as a total sleazeball. Let's just say that he's hungry for more than just the apps. Thankfully, this is one of the precious few times that Scott Cawthon has stepped in to set the record straight, explaining that this gross version of my best shipmate is in fact non-canon, and that this scene will be altered in all future printings of the novelization. In short, Nug lives on. In the movie, it was lightly implied that Maxine had a bit of a crush on Mike. In the book, though, it goes from subtle subtext into a full-on plot point. She constantly dresses up for Mike, dropping tons of hints about her interest, growing more and more frustrated with Mike as he's completely oblivious to her advances. In fact, it's actually part of her motivation for spying on him for Aunt Jane, which she also...
I don't know if I wish that this was in the movie just because it may have bloated it a little bit too much. Also, I kind of like the idea of her character being, like, innocent without, like, a malicious intent behind it. She's just pushed to this situation because she needs money so bad. This would have been kind of nice. I don't know. I'm kind of sad that this is not in the movie.
So feels very regretful for in the books, unlike the film where she just kind of looks sad out of a window for a bit.
I feel like she was regretful in the movie.
Mike is more of a theorist in the book than he was in the film.
But you know what? Hold on. I simultaneously think that adding that motivation would have given her death a little bit more oomph, like a more motivation for her to be killed by the animatronics, because she has like a dark part of her heart. But I also kind of like the idea that the animatronics are so animalistic that they are just killing anyone who comes into the pizzeria, regardless of whether or not they are really a threat to the animatronics. She came in thinking that there was a kid in danger, and they used that against her.
But there is so much more packed into this book, enough so that I believe that we can figure out exactly where the story of the next 2 movies is headed. And it all begins with the hill that apparently I'm going to be dying on for my final FNAF theories, a human being a robot. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Vanessa is a robot, and I suspect she's not going to be the only one. Now, obviously that is a huge claim to make, so let's start backing it up, shall we?
She's not going to be the only robot? Are Matt, Pat, and I on the same wavelength here?
In short, the extra details in the prologue of the novelization strongly suggest that Afton is actively hiring guards to this pizzeria to harvest a remnant from them so he can continue on with his experiments.
Yeah, and that's what I thought too. Upon, like, really looking at that, the Torture Freddy is still such an interesting addition to the story, and I really hope that gets explored further. I think I would like to see a little bit more backstory from William in the movies. Even if it's not canon to, like, what's going on in the games, I think it would be really cool to get more of his origins as someone experimenting with this stuff, like we do in the novels.
Film Afton is likely already tinkering with much more advanced animatronic technology. Again, look no further than the cold open of the novel. The Torture Freddy mask isn't just an old repurposed Freddy head like it is in the movie. Instead, it's described like this. Quote, "The 2 halves of the bear face peeled back like the wings of a beetle, expanding outward. As the fur parted, spinning robotic mechanisms filled Bob's vision."
So this seems like it works more like the Funtime faces. right?
This description of how the mask operates, with pieces that split apart and fold out, is actually much more fitting of a different generation of animatronic, the Fun Time.
I called it.
And what do we see in FNAF 5? The game where these Fun Times take center stage? Down in Afton's bunker, we see articulating humanoid robot heads. And these aren't just set
Super
decorations
normal for
either.
the
These
80s
heads
and
are important
90s.
enough to have been directly called out by the FNAF character encyclopedia. A mad scientist of a man trying to use his robotic skills to bring a human back to life, to put his loved ones back together.
Is he so obsessed with bringing back his own son that he is willing to rip other people's kids from them? If so, are we getting WandaVision? Are we getting like Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch energy from William Afton, where it's like he becomes a villain because of his intense desire to have his perfect family? Anyway, sorry.
Literally. Going back to the movie, this is likely why we see a humanoid animatronic
I
with teeth,
know.
silver eyes, and an arm with 5 articulated human
I
fingers buried in the
know.
parts and services room. It's not just an Easter egg put there from scraps laying around the Jim Henson office. This
No.
looks like it's a first-generation robot person. So we have an
My
Afton
thoughts
that's already
exactly.
harvesting and experimenting with Remnant at the beginning of this film. And we know that there's a human-shaped robot buried in the parts and services room that suggests that he might have been working on some sort of human prototype. That right there, though, is still
Is
a
that
long
in the
way
book?
away from creating a convincing enough robot that it's able to fool literally everyone around it. First thing I'd like to talk about here is actually something that jumped out to me the first time I watched the movie: the performance of Vanessa's actress, Elizabeth Lale. Something I noticed throughout the movie
Oh my
was how
gosh.
aloof and disc
I've
her
never
voice
seen
was
her
always
not
flat,
as Vanessa.
her character almost always stoic.
A new security guard?
Yeah.
You're bleeding, by the way.
And for the times that she actually did show emotion, she was flipping on a dime, seemingly out of nowhere.
Take care of your sister. You can do whatever you want with your own life, but if you ever bring Abby back here again, I will shoot you.
Considering the character that she's based on from the games, you'd think that she might be more bubbly or energetic based on how she was in Security Breach.
Hello, little boy. If you're down here, say something.
Hey, little man, do you know what time it is?
We know that she's a talented actor. I mean, just check out some of the clips of her playing Anna in the show Once Upon a Time.
He's Prince Charming, and you're Snow White, and those things sound terrible, but they also sound romantic. What is that amazing smell?
I didn't know she was Anna in Once Upon a Time. I could never, ever watch this show.
Chocolate!
No, the flatter delivery from her has to have been an intentional direction that she was given. Perhaps direction to sound a bit more robotic. In the novelization, Vanessa seems to shift.
I just do not think that's specific to her. Can I be, like, if I can take a moment? That does not feel specific to her. I feel like Mike is very similar in the fact that he flips on a dime emotionally. Really Abby, too. Like, either they're speaking pretty flatly or they're shifted and being very emotional. I don't know. I'm on board with the theory of Vanessa being a robot. Maybe he's going to talk about how the books like support that evidence. So I don't know how unique that is to Vanessa as a character in the movie, personally.
Personalities on a dime, changing between what Mike describes as the bubbly girl mode and the intensely serious cop mode. For example, during their first night meeting, we get this, quote, "Then someone invisible flipped a switch. Vanessa's cop mode deactivated." That right there, it's a pretty suspicious way of phrasing a psychological change like that. Intentionally using robotic language in this franchise? Press X to doubt. The same thing happens towards the end of the movie too, where after Vanessa's stabbed by Afton, Abby notices this, quote again, "Vanessa's eyes looked weird, like they were lights that were having a hard time staying on." And speaking of both Vanessa's eyes and her personality shifts,
They just outright say that in the book? Are they trying to hide it then? To me, that just feels like outright confirmation rather than an evidence. I'm just shocked that they would say such a thing in the book. If she is a robot, I'm fairly excited that that's the conclusion that I was coming to at the end of the movie by itself, because that means that she must have done such a good job acting and they must have done such a good job with that moment of her death. People hated on that movie so much. I think the criticisms are valid from a regular moviegoer standpoint, but whenever I like figure things like this out or am watching things like this that are examining how it ties into everything that's a part of the larger FNAF universe, this was a very well told story. Whatever.
Biggest piece of evidence here, Vanessa's eyes literally change color when she shifts personalities. Check it out, again from the book, page 144. Right after Mike tells Vanessa about his Garrett kidnapping dreams, quote, the narrowing of the eyes, the stiffening of her mouth, she was back in cop mode. No, Mike thought, it wasn't cop mode, it was something else. Vanessa's irises deepened noticeably in hue. They went from their usual soft, almost grayish blue to a deeper indigo. The color shift was so pronounced that it almost looked computer generated.
That is so, like, that is just, like, what is even the point of building it up then? I guess I would have read the book anyway and I would have figured this out anyway. But this is like, this stuff right here is why I didn't want to watch this theory, because I'm like, no, now I can't just watch the movie and have a magical fun time watching a movie. This isn't even a theory. You know what I'm trying to say? This is just reality at this point, right? Her eyes change color. She switches from mode to mode. Her eyes seem to be like flickering when she was dying.
That it almost looked computer generated. Computer generated, huh? What a choice of words that is. And indigo, you say? You mean the color that some would confuse with purple? But perhaps the single most telling part of this little paragraph comes in the final line. It was enormously disquieting. Mike felt like he was watching a human turning into, and then he trails off, not having a chance to finish the thought.
It's just confirmed she's a robot. Like, this is not a theory, this is just reality. This is what they've written into the book.
And they're black. It's almost as if she's fallen back on some sort of Afton designed programming. Almost like he's controlling her. In fact, every time Vanessa tries to do something to keep Mike from looking into this mystery,
this was I know he's probably going to say it too, but I have to get my thoughts out before he says them to prove that I didn't just watch the video. And this was the other thing that I noticed from the movie, where I was like, she does not want to go help. I think I've even said this in a video before, where she does not want to go help Mike because she says she will be of no help. Trust her. That was another one of my call-outs in my head where I was just like, I think she's a robot. But then she goes and she is of help to them, and then he just kills her. This is my only thought, is that, and this is complicated because he would have to know that he was gonna lose this, or he was gonna need her later without Mike knowing she was a robot. That he would go out of his way to like stab her, make it seem like she's dying, which also means she doesn't know she's a robot. So maybe that's what they're trying to communicate there. And then she can continue to influence Mike later. He's doing some long game scheme with her, but it's still so weird that she's like, oh, I can't go. I won't be of any help to you. I promise. There's no way I will be of any help to you. And then she totally is of help. Okay, anyway, sorry, keep going. I know he's just about to say it probably, but I just had to get it out.
Covering Afton's secrets, her eyes go to this darker color. He notices that her eyes grow darker and become blurred. And then something, in quotes, breaks any connection that they're forming. And yet, when she's begging for him not to go to Freddy's at all, to save himself and Abby, again, quote, he looked into her eyes, so soft and blue right now that it seemed like some of her essence, life force, was leaching from her. So he was just going to continue talking about the eyes, apparently. I was wrong. He wasn't going to say what I thought, but is talking about how she's like connected to Afton in that way. That he has some level of control over her. It's interesting to me that she would know that her father has such a powerful influence over her behaviors, but doesn't know that she's a robot. Or she does know, but she's keeping up the ruse that she doesn't know. This is complicated. It's complicated. You guys think FNAF is complicated? It seemed like some of her essence, life force, was leaching from her. If there's some Afton-driven programming controlling Vanessa, that would also explain one of the stranger moments from the film. She reveals the dark secrets of her past and the pizzeria. When Mike asks her to help save Abby, though, she declines. Not because she doesn't want to help, but because she feels like she literally can't.
Now he's saying it.
If he's there, I won't be any use to you, believe me.
And when she does show up to the pizzeria later on, once confronted by Afton, she's only able to bring herself to shoot once before completely freezing up, kind of like a computer that's crashed. Even my favorite line of the movie.
You had one job, keep him in the dark and kill him if he got too close.
That's 2 jobs.
Is a robotic, process-driven answer. And before you say that, Vanessa...
No, I'm sorry. That's a callback to earlier in the movie. Okay.
Can't be a robot because we see her get stabbed and have to go to the hospital. Yeah, that's admittedly the biggest point against the theory. That said, remember the franchise that we're talking about here, friends? These robots can be so lifelike, so realistic that you cannot tell them apart from real humans at all. They eat, they sleep, they breathe. They can even bleed like Charlie does in the original FNAF book trilogy. I get that the FNAF franchise tends to be cryptic, but time and time and time again, there have been signs that someone in this franchise is a robot.
Is this cryptic? Is this cryptic? If she's not a robot, her eyes are robots. Like, I don't know. With this novelization, if you neglect the novelization, I think the movies could go on and have her not be a robot. But if this is a part of it, this doesn't feel like a theory. We're gonna look at the comments at the end of this and see if anybody is arguing against it and what they're arguing. What in the world? No. She goes to the hospital.
Maybe it was Gregory from Security Breach. We know for a fact that Charlie from the book trilogy was, Jessica from Frailty, Billy...
Can someone tell me what this picture is from? This picture of Charlie? Where is this from? I see Matt Pat use it a lot. It's not what I picture Charlie looking like. That's all. If it's official art, then it's official art. But it just is not. Like, every time I think of Charlie, I do not imagine such doe-eyed, like, feminine features. She seems so much more androgynous in my head. Who am I to say? Who am I?
From B7, Sarah from To Be Beautiful, the list goes on and on and on. They are hitting us over the head time and again with these kids who become robots. If I just keep saying that one of these characters is in fact an animatronic, eventually I will be right. Right? This
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Games make more sense. Remember the unmasked ending from Security Breach? No, of course not. Why would you? Well, in it, we see two...
I remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Vanessa's, one who's fallen to the ground and died, while another's still up on the roof of the building looking down at the scene. This was always weird, and we as a FNAF community just kind of politely ignored it, but it suddenly makes a lot more sense if Vanessa is in fact a robot. Why go through all of this trouble? Keep the pizzeria up and running, hire new guards to farm remnant from, create an animatronic as human as Vanessa? Why is he doing it? Well, the answer seems to be staring us in the face throughout the movie. It's this. The Ella Springlock suit in the back. Think about it. Vanessa's incredibly cautious around this animatronic.
I'm trying to make sure this is genuinely, like, me talking back about the theory and not just watching the video. So I'm trying to figure out what he's about to say. Is Ella the perfect Vanessa? Like, adult Charlie / baby in the novels was supposed to be, like, the penultimate, like, the adult. But Henry could never perfect it no matter how hard he tried. And that's what Ella is supposed to be? Hold on, let me go back and listen to this again.
But why? Sure, Afton might be creepy, and he's even creepier in the book, but why go through all of this trouble? Keep the pizzeria up and running, hire new guards to farm remnant from, create an animatronic as human as Vanessa? Why is he doing it?
Maybe once he says it, I'll be like, oh, yes, of course, exactly. Yes, of course.
The answer seems to be staring us in the face throughout the movie. It's this. The Ella Springlock suit in the back. Think about it. Vanessa's incredibly cautious around this animatronic in the film, warning Mike not to go near it and going as far as threatening to shoot him if he brings Abby back to the pizzeria. If she loves all these animatronics so much, why is she so cautious about this one? Well, what if it already killed someone? Someone Vanessa knows very well. Someone like herself. Afton's daughter, the original Vanessa. I believe that in his desire to create the best animatronics
I still
possible,
technically said it before he did.
This Ella Springlock animatronic, and it ended up killing his own daughter. Just like what we see happen with Baby in the games. That is where his obsession started. His desire to find the secrets of life after death. He wanted to rebuild his daughter, and in the process, he discovered Remnant, how to create it, the pain required for it. That's why he built the torture device with the green Freddy mask, and made sure that it was close to the Ella animatronic.
Oh! Is it that Vanessa's life force is that remnant and he has to keep replenishing that, otherwise she dies? Is that why he says it's the mess you made? I think I might be onto something. If he says the same thing, I'm going to be really excited. He's blaming her for it somehow. Like, we know that. That was a lot of my analysis of the FNAF movie characters, is that he seems to blame her for a lot of what's going on. Maybe that's why he's trying to make her as obedient as possible. A lot of the stuff that goes on with specifically this, like, building your child back reminds me of another game called Lily's Well. And if you know, then you know. But it's a game, GT Live has played it on their channel. Spoiler alert, if you want to play the game, go play the game. But there's no reason for me to make a video about this, so I'm just, like, gonna pop it in here. But spoiler alert, Lily is being remade by her father, and he's attempting to make the most obedient version of her. And every disobedient version ends up dying. And then there's just, like, this pile of Lilies who have passed because they didn't listen to him. But listening to him is being isolated and kept away from the world and staying in her room all the time. And it's very sad. And it reminds me a lot of like the crying child story. And it reminds me of like what he's saying right now, where it's like you're just trying to create the most obedient version of your lost child because you're like, oh, well, you only died because you didn't listen to me.
Like in the parts and services room, Afton wanted to infuse the suit with Remnant, all in the hopes of bringing back his real Vanessa. Eventually, he was able to build the Vanessa that we see in the movie, but even then, she's difficult. She rebels. She doesn't want to help him as much, especially when children like Abby get involved. It's not.
But this is how the mimic works too. Am I right about this? This is kind of like my thought about how the mimic works too. And this, I don't know if this is how the mimic in Tales from the Pizzaplex works, but it seems like the mimic within the game world that we're experiencing seems to start gaining some kind of conscious or at least will. The mimic seems to be gaining will to act on its own accord rather than follow the programming, which is a common theme in like AI stories where it's like the AI starts to gain its own will to do and be. This is kind of telling the same story that's kind of going along with the mimic where it, you know, initially is following its programming and doing everything. But over time, because there is artificial intelligence involved, it starts to gain like free thought or free will. So MatPat is saying that William wants to bring back the original Vanessa and this is a robot inside of the Ella doll. I thought he was going to say like the remnant is her life force and she needs it to survive. It's just so interesting. I don't know if I agree with that. I'll keep listening. I don't know if I agree with that.
Real Vanessa. So Afton will keep trying and trying and trying. And if I'm right about this, it tells us a huge amount about where the franchise is headed in the next film. In our last theory, we suggested that Mike's brother Garrett is likely the identity of the puppet in the films, and will probably be the centerpiece of the second movie. I mean, the credits literally end with the puppet telling both Mike and the audience to come find me.
True.
However, this is gonna be a problem for Mike, Abby, and Vanessa. You see, Afton has a strange connection with Garrett. In the book, Garrett actually appears in the pizzeria during the final battle, luring Mike to a more secluded area where Afton can ambush him. Afton has control over Garrett's spirit in the scene, enough so that Garrett literally melts into the shadows that Afton emerges from. Quote from the book, "It was as if Garrett became part of the gloaming under the archway. He was there, and then he was something else. In Garrett's place, someone in a rabbit costume appeared. Not just someone, a man. So, if Afton controls Garrett's spirit, it's likely that the puppet is going to be the villain of the second film, creating a whole new conflict for Mike to overcome. And then if the third movie follows the third game, an undead Afton will be back as the main antagonist, with the grand reveal that he's been able to make robot people the entire time. Vanessa will be revealed to be a robot, and Afton will tempt Mike with exactly what he wants. He could put Garrett back together as a robot, exactly the way Mike remembered him as a child, just as Afton did with his daughter. All Mike has to do is help Afton with his evil experiments, and Mike then will be left with a choice. Just how badly does he want his brother back? Guess we'll have to watch the movie, and then read the corresponding 8-book series released afterward to find out. But
I know he's about to say, hold on.
Hey, even though Vanessa might be mechanical, there's one thing I know.
He's going into the ad read. Okay, so that works really well with my assertion that Mike in the movies represents Henry. That rather than getting a Henry in this story that was William's partner at the beginning of all this, that choice about like bringing someone back from the dead the way that Henry does in the books will be Mike's choice regarding his brother rather than Henry's choice regarding his daughter, which also aligns with thoughts that I've had that William uses Charlie's death to get Henry to build the Funtime animatronics. It all makes so much sense. Wow. What an interesting theory. Okay, so final thoughts. I think Vanessa's, confirmed robot, right? I don't think that's even a theory. The theory is what William's plans are. And the idea that he's trying to bring Vanessa back via Ella seems so strange to me. I don't think he would have the animatronics put Abby in the suit if that's what the suit's purpose was. I may be misunderstanding what he's saying at that part of the video. I think it makes more sense if he has to keep collecting remnant to keep fueling Vanessa. And that would be a really good reason for William to be so blame heavy on Vanessa is because he's like, I'm trying to keep you alive. But it seems like there must have been, I guess that's the question, are there other Vanessas, like younger ones? And does he have another one that's gonna activate at the end of this, or is she going to like wake back up and reactivate? And if so, who does that? Overall, I certainly agree with this theory that she's a robot. I just don't think that's a theory. If the book is the way that they intended the movie to be interpreted, sans obviously Doug's character, who Scott was like, no, I decided I didn't like that. Our path moving forward is, can we use these movies to make determinations about what's going on in the games at all? But it does strengthen the argument for Vanessa in the games being a robot, in my opinion. ID's Fantasy has a video about the two Vanessa theory, which MatPat mentions in this. When he says we politely ignored it, I don't know that that's true. I think that we either didn't have an answer for it, or people like ID's Fantasy like have tackled it head on. So I don't think it's been ignored. I hope you're okay with a more casual video this week, but I'm really excited for next week's theory, so I hope you'll join me next Friday for that. Live streams are also coming very soon. We did one last week. It went over really well. It's still up if you want to watch it. It was really fun getting to talk to all of you guys. I want to do more of that. We're thinking about doing a FNAF book club where every time I finish a book, we do a live stream where we talk about that book. So the next one would be the Twisted Ones if you want to join in for that. When I schedule a live stream, if you're subscribed and have bell notifications turned on, you will get like a notification, or at the very least it should show up on your homepage at some point that I've scheduled a live stream. Thank you so much for watching. If you have subscribed, thank you so much for subscribing and being a part of the Nervous system. If you have yet to subscribe, I'd love it if you would join us. Please comment your thoughts about this theory and about my reaction to the theory so we can keep the conversation going. Also, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, or if you just want to support the channel. Liking the video and subscribing and sharing the video with anybody you know who you think might enjoy it are all great organic ways to help the growth of the channel. However, if you would like to financially support the channel, you can do super thanks. When I'm live, you can do super chats, and you can become a member of the Nervous System for $1 right now. I'll be back next week, but if you can't wait, there are videos on screen right now just for you. Okay, bye. Helps support that.